are less than a week away from college football. I can't believe it's here. Been a long off season, it feels like. I've had you covered on all fronts here over the last month. We did a quarterback tier ranking series for all the Power 5 conferences and also gave you futures and season win totals for all of the Power 5 conferences as well. We also did the independents and a few group of 5 teams yesterday. Going forward, it's going to be almost strictly game breakdowns. And I'll do those game by game here on this channel. But one other preseason video I wanted to do is a Heisman dark horse video. Now, with guys like CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, guys like that are probably going to win it, I just don't see much value betting a guy 3-1, having to wait that long to win a trophy like the Heisman that goes to just one guy. With that being said, there have been guys who've come out of the woodworks. I mean, Joe Burrow, Devontae Smith, guys that preseason you might not have thought would have had a good shot. I've identified 2 guys we're getting a great return on that I think have a legitimate shot to win this award this year. We're going to go ahead and get into that in a second. First off, please subscribe to the channel. That helps out what I'm trying to build, and like the video as well. If you enjoy what you see today, feel free to leave any comments as well. Agreements, disagreements, I can handle it all. Leave it below. My main platform is on Twitter, so you can follow me there at Fordham Betting. Deep in the weeds of Major League Baseball right now, but with college football back, last year hit at a 55% clip, netted over 27 units. Feel even better about how I'll do this year. So just a few housekeeping things. That being said, the first guy I want to start out with is Blake Corum. I mean, he's at 100-1 at both FanDuel and Caesars. I mean, listen, Blake Corum was a guy last year, nearly 1,000 yards on the ground in his freshman year, over 6.5 yards per carry. You know, he was playing second fiddle to Hassan Haskins last year. And you listen, I don't blame Jim Harbaugh for looking more in Haskins' direction. He was a senior. He played a lot of football at Michigan. But Blake Corum assuredly has the higher upside. And I think he showed that last year. With Haskins now moved on, I think Blake Corum is going to be a true lead back for Michigan this year. The way I view Michigan's offense, I know they're, at least as of now, sort of still in a quarterback, competition. To me, I think Cade McNamara wins the job. I mean, he led them to the playoff last year. It's pretty hard to strip the guy's job away when he led you to playoff the year before. I think that lends more towards a run-first scheme, sort of how we saw last year. And listen, even if Harbaugh does go towards J.J. McCarthy, I still think this is a team that's going to pound the ground game. Blake Corum is going to get plenty of carries to be able to have a Heisman-caliber season. Now, he's got to do it. Obviously, he hasn't had that full workload throughout a full season. But, man, as you're seeing throughout these highlights here on the video, this is a guy with elite speed that's got home run hitting ability at that running back position. A big part about, me sprinkling on a Heisman guy as well, your team's got to be nationally relevant. I mean, if it were just off strictly numbers alone, I mean, I think we all know that's not just how the Heisman gets decided. I mean, there's a certain team aspect to it as well. I think looking at this Michigan team that, is expected to win right around 9 games this year. I mean, they made the playoff last year. They're absolutely a nationally relevant team. I think he could be the centerpiece of this offense. He's going to have the luxury of running behind a really good offensive line. I mean, they don't return everybody up front, but last year they were just so good. I think that's going to be a major strength for him once again. I thought getting Blake Corum at 100-1. I mean, we see Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, who very talented guy who's kind of in a similar situation. For Braylon Allen to be right around 50-1 at most places, Blake Corum to be this far below him, I don't see that. I do think Blake Corum is a dark horse this year for the Heisman Trophy. One other guy that I wanted to touch on that I did sprinkle on as well is Hendon Hooker. This one shouldn't be as hard to see for me. I got him at 60-1, which is available at both FanDuel and Caesars. Hendon Hooker, if he plays a full season like he did last year, he's going to have Heisman caliber numbers. I mean, just last year alone. And one thing you have to account for with Hendon Hooker last year, he didn't go into the season knowing he was going to be the starter. He didn't start game 1. He came in that Pitt game week 2, and all he did was just excel for Josh Heupel. I mean, 69% through the air, 9.8 yards per attempt, 26 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Oh, and not only that, 561 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. He's a true dual threat guy, but for him to come immediately into this system and put up those level of passing numbers, all while taking care of the football, what more could you have asked for Hendon Hooker last year? Now he's got the full offseason, knowing he's the guy. You're playing in a system that, whether you're high on Tennessee or not, they're going to score a lot of points this year. They're going to be a top 10 offense, borderline, somewhere around there. The points are going to be there. So I think the stats will be there for Hooker. He's going to have a good running game at his disposal as well, which I think will only help him open up some of the vertical passing game and start to hit on some of those deep touchdowns. I already mentioned Josh Heupel. runs a very fast-paced offense that, is going to yield a lot of points. For me, the one X factor in this is I do think Tennessee's got to be better on their offensive line, because we saw last year Hooker is maybe the most dynamic quarterback in the SEC, and yet Tennessee still yielded the most sacks in the SEC last year, almost the most in the country. So they got to be better up front. There's no doubt about that. Got to give him more time on some of those slower developing plays. But with that being said, with what I saw from Hendon Hooker last year, I think he could absolutely have a Heisman caliber season. Now, we talked about this with Michigan. The one consideration for this as well is I do think your team has to be nationally relevant for you to have a chance at this trophy. Tennessee's win total was at 7.5. I didn't have a play on that. I do think there are going to be opportunities for him to have that breakout Heisman moment. I mean, they play Alabama middle of the season, and they play at Georgia later in the season. I'm not predicting them to win either one of those games, but the opportunities are going to be there. At the very least, I mean, listen, Tennessee through 3 quarters last year played Alabama really close in Tuscaloosa. So coming back home to Knoxville, I expect that to be a competitive game at the very least. And, Georgia basically dominated everybody defensively last year. I think they're going to be very good on that side of the ball, but I could absolutely see them having a hard time with a dynamic quarterback and just a dynamic offense like this. So I think that could be a competitive game as well. I think we're probably going to need Tennessee to go 8-4. I mean, when Lamar Jackson won the Heisman Trophy at Louisville, I wouldn't say Louisville was necessarily nationally relevant. I mean, they obviously had a certain floor as a team. I'm not saying Tennessee even has to make the SEC championship game because I don't think that's going to happen, but he needs to have that one breakout game, maybe against an Alabama, maybe against a Georgia. I think the numbers are going to be there. That I'm kind of banking on one of those things happening, but at 60-1, I did feel comfortable playing that with Hooker. I just don't think there's that big of a gap between him and then some of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the country. Those were the two that I put official plays in for. Very small sprinkles, but still plays nonetheless. 2 other guys that I was looking at, both in the SEC actually, KJ Jefferson, I thought there was some value with him. I guess the issue is I don't know if the, counting numbers are going to be there because Arkansas is a very balanced offense. I mean, they had one of the most efficient rushing attacks in the country last year. So I don't know if he's going to throw for the amount of yards needed to compete for that. I mean, I think he's extremely efficient, had a breakout 2021 season. He's going to have a lot of weapons at his disposal once again, and he plays in a quarterback-friendly system. So I did consider KJ Jefferson. I mean, Devin Achane from A&M too, and it's hard for me to say as a UT fan, but I think A&M, especially defensively, is a championship level unit. It's just they're probably not going to get a great quarterback play once again. So if they do want to compete for the SEC West, it's probably going to fall on Achane's shoulders. I mean, very similar to Blake Corum. I mean, because A&M had Isaiah Spiller in past seasons, who was much more of the bell cow every down back, whereas Devin Achane would come in and be kind of a change of pace home run hitting back. He is going to have to adjust to that new role, but he's going to break off a ton of big runs. I think Devin Achane is one of the best running backs in the country, and he's poised for a breakout year. I just wasn't able to get to the window with that. So those were really the 2 other ones that I seriously considered, especially just because, like I said, you have to be nationally relevant. I mean, I think Malik Cunningham could have a really good year for Louisville, but Louisville's win total is at 6, so they're just not going to really be in the spotlight. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is one for me too that I could not be higher on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but the reality of it is he's not going to have those national moments as well. Like I said, people vote on the Heisman, so most of those people that cover teams in the Southeast are going to be asleep when Dorian Thompson-Robinson is playing. I think he's going to have a great year, but couldn't get to the window with that either. With that being said, we'll just stick 2 sprinkles. Blake Corum at 100-1. I think that's crazy price. And then also Hendon Hooker at 60-1. All right, guys, quick video today. This is kind of my last video here for this preview series. Go check out all the other ones on the channel. Give out futures, season win totals, did a quarterback tier ranking series as well. But right now, guys, it's time for football. It's time to handicap some actual games. I'll have individual breakdowns for all the games that I'm going to handicap. I mean, I can tell you right now, like Nevada, New Mexico State, not a game I'm going to spend 1 second on. But there are some games coming up this next Saturday that I will have videos for. And then obviously, once we get into the swing of the season, definitely going to have tons of YouTube content and game breakdowns for you. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you liked what you heard today, like the video. And also, I mean, if you have another Heisman dark horse kind of guy that fits the same category that I was looking at today, feel free to leave that guy in the comments below. One more thing before we head out. You see this shirt right here. I know you've been staring at it the whole time. If you want to support me and what I'm trying to build on this channel, head over to proud90.com. Unique but very comfortable golf polos. They also got t-shirts, hoodies, quarter zips. Proud 90 has got all your golf apparel needs. If you see anything you like at proud90.com at checkout, right where it says discount code, if you enter the code Fordham, it's going to get you 15% off your entire order. Support me, support Proud90, Proud90, that's proud90.com, code Fordham, 15% off. Thank you guys for watching the video. I'll have game breakdowns for week 0 coming up throughout the week. Appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you here in a few days.